Angry red-stickered landowners in Kaikoura marched on their council today, desperate for someone, anyone, to listen. We've covered the issue of land hazards extensively on Checkpoint, in particular the risk posed by a cliff to quake-damaged homes in Rakotaura. More than 2 years after the 2016 earthquakes, the Kaikoura Council maintains it's not safe for the cluster of homeowners to live in their houses where they are currently. Last week it revealed it wanted the houses moved in Rakotaura to make them safe. But residents Checkpoint have spoken to, well, they aren't happy with the solution. So now they've taken their fight quite literally to the front steps of council. Our South Island reporter Logan Church and cameraman Simon Rogers were with them.
After the Christchurch quake, everyone said it's going to be better this time, it's going to be easier. But this, dealing with council, has just been a nightmare.
That's Nolene O'Carroll, one of 5 red-stickered landowners in Rakotaura, north of Kaikoura. We've met Nolene and her husband John before on Checkpoint. As she tries to figure out what to do with their home they had to abandon after the 2016 quake sent boulders raining down from the cliff behind. The threat posed by that cliff is responsible for the council-issued red sticker on the house.
We're here, Logan, today, well, tomorrow, to attend the council meeting. Council hasn't really listened to us, so this is our first step to make them sit up and take notice, hopefully.
I first came to Rakotaura with Nolene and John in May, and even then their property was slowly falling to pieces. The house had clearly been used by squatters, the garden was growing up through the floorboards. 6 months on, has anything changed? So this is Nolene and John's place. And it looks like an absolute jungle. When I first came to this property, some of the grass was about 30 centimetres long. Now it's almost at shoulder height. Nolene had this gate actually nailed to these stairs to stop squatters coming up. That clearly hasn't worked. But in the meantime, it seems a tree's growing through the stairs. This is one of the many rocks which came hurtling down that cliff during the earthquake just over 2 years ago. And this is what remains of Nolene and John's back garden. Weeds, trees, big boulders, and lots of fading memories. And Nolene isn't alone. So we're going to head down to the end of the lane to Joe and Les's place. Last week, the Kaikoura District Council announced for the 5 red sticker properties here in Rakotaura, they are going to help move the homes away from the cliff and make them safer. But Joe and Les think on their place, there's going to be a serious problem. Right in front of Joe and Les's house, also seemingly abandoned, and right in front of the only space the house can move on to, is the main rail line. So we rolled out the measuring tape. The distance between the house and the railway line is about 17 metres. Now there are no exact provisions in the Kaikoura District Plan as to how close or how far away from a railway line you actually have to build. However, Kiwi Rail recommends 5 metres. So that brings us to 12 metres. But Joe and Les thinks that if you bring the house forward to here, that still will not make it safe from that cliff. Even though the Kaikoura Council knows what it wants to do with these properties, at this stage it does not know how it will do it. And that leads us back to Nolene. She's pleaded and begged for help from the council, but the cash-strapped organisation hasn't yet come up with a detailed plan. And in the meantime, Nolene and John have been trying to figure out how the house could be moved.
It possibly can be done. It won't be cheap. We've looked at some figures, but if we moved them forward and on-sold them, I wouldn't sleep at night selling them to somebody knowing the risk. I mean, who's going to buy it? What is the point?
It could cost nearly $100,000 to move Nolene's house. She's calling on the government, who has already given the council $1.5 million to help solve land hazard issues for 15 properties, for more help. But last week, local government minister Nanaia Mahuta told Checkpoint she believed the council had come up with a workable solution and she had not asked for any more money to be allocated.
I don't think she even knows where we are, to be honest. I wonder if she's actually been to Rakotaura. I'd love her to come down here and see our problems.
Last week, Checkpoint invited Nanaia Mahuta to travel down and meet with these residents, but we've had no response. But let's fast forward to today. Nolene and 5 other red-stickered landowners are here outside the council. Some we've met before, including Joe and Les. A large sign Les holds says forcing people to return to a place where they feared for their lives is thoughtless, heartless and cruel.
People don't want to live there when there's any risk at all, and that's the whole crux of the matter.
And that's the message these residents put to the Kaikoura Council not long after. They said there seemed to be a double standard with how Christchurch residents were treated after the 2011 quake.
And what they've done on Mount Pleasant, when those houses where people there were at risk of rockfall, they had to pay them out. They didn't decide to move the houses down the hill a few more metres to make it a little bit safer. It was ridiculous. They had to pay them out.
The Mayor, Winston Gray, read out a pre-prepared statement outlining how the council came to its decision, but Les urged them to reconsider.
The councillors have only based it on the reports they've read. This is the first time they've had the opportunity to actually listen to the people and our point of view. And what I'm asking the councillors is whether there's anything we've said today that would make you rethink it if you had another opportunity to.
After the meeting, the council's chief executive, Angela Oosthuizen, told me the council would not go back on its decision, but she empathised with the residents.
Unfortunately, I don't believe there is scope to reconsider the decision. As I said, we've been through a really long, complex process. It's taken 2 years to get to this point. We've had two independent assessors come through and actually look at the geotechnical analysis, and we've got to outcomes which I believe address the risks and address the outcomes that the council wanted to achieve.
But these landowners still aren't happy.
I guess we'll have to look at legal action then to force them to do the right thing. And then that's a shame, because it's just going to be money and expenditure and time and heartache and all the stuff we don't need or want, but what choice do we have?
While these landowners are now going away to consider their next step, their message to the council is clear. They are not going to abandon their fight anytime soon.